What's going on, boys? Today we're talking a bit about SI. It's a complicated function people tend to oversimplify. Most SI descriptions are a travesty. So we'll break SI into its components and contrast it against NI. Explaining something difficult is easier when you put it up against something else. The first aspect of SI we will go over is the most common one, data storage. But it isn't just data storage. The first thing you need to know about SI is it is not comprehensive storage. It's not perfect memory by any means. It stores significant scenes and sensations. And for whatever reason, SI types seem to remember the same sorts of things, and I don't know how to explain that. For instance, my two closest friends in middle and high school growing up were ESTJs. Over 10 years ago now, one of them found a butt plug, a dirtied butt plug, in his neighbor's garbage, and he dug it out and sent a picture of it to me. And I was talking to him recently, and I asked him, I've been thinking about this recently. Do you remember what you found in your neighbor's garbage that one time? Leaving the question as vague as possible to see if he would be able to fill in the memory. And he goes, "Oh, you're talking about the butt plug, right? That I found in my neighbor's trash. The neighbors who, for whatever reason, were always out in their front yard with their kids, throwing the ball around, just constantly. It's like they were never inside. Had a cross on their front lawn and would stare at us every time we walked by their house." Yeah, I remember that exactly. It's not just sharing an exact memory, but it's sharing a memory or retaining a memory of the moment and all the details surrounding the moment. The details that made that moment significant. The fact it was a giant butt plug didn't hurt. The fact that friend now is a medical professional, and hearing him say, "I cannot believe someone was fitting something that big up their ass." But even though that moment is insignificant, you might think in the throes of bullshitting that would be a significant moment anyone would remember. Even though all those details in the narrative constructing that memory, most people would probably forget. Or maybe not most people. Non-SI types. Another example. Other ESTJ friend. Again, not a decade ago, but years and years ago, we were walking around during this Halloween thing. We walked by a dude dressed as Jesus, and my ESTJ friend offhandedly said, "Oh, it's that guy from Nazareth." Very small moment, didn't get a huge laugh, but for whatever reason it was significant. Fast forward years and years later. Again, studying SI, want to test someone's memory. Do you remember that guy we saw during that Halloween thing? As vague as possible on all fronts. "Oh yeah, when we were dressed as cowboys, walking around looking stupid and being embarrassing, and we ran into that dude who died for our sins." A small detail that is, for some reason, significant gets picked up in personal and shared memory. Now compare that against speaking with NI types. One ENTJ friend ranted to me about one topic for 3 hours one evening. 3 hours, one topic, these same points, over and over and over again. The next day, "Hey, do you remember that conversation we had yesterday?" "No, what are you talking about?" "You know, the one where you went over and over and over and over on these points?" "I'm not sure what you're talking about. Can you give me a refresher?" Another one, INTJ friend, speaking about an event that happened, and I'm listening to him retell the story, and then I realize, not only do I know what story he's talking about, but I was there right beside him when it was happening. And I realize he doesn't remember I was there, so I start feeding details about the event into his narrative, and then he stops and realizes I was there during that. And those are 4 examples to each, but they demonstrate a difference between SI and NI data storage. When it comes to events and details remembered, SI is more thorough, and it seems to be linked up on some kind of network in which SI types who have witnessed the same events remember those same events in pretty much the same way. And it's almost like when we're thinking about it, we're reliving it. Versus NI types who, when they remember something, it seems more like they're looking at a spreadsheet of data about an event rather than returning to that significant moment. And the moments NI types find significant seem not to be linked up in the same way SI types' memories are. And I mentioned SI data storage isn't comprehensive. That leads back into significance. I think what SI types find significant in memories or events and what NI types find significant in memories or events are different. When I was younger, my mother was in a rental car for over a year, and the event that caused the need for the rental car was significant, and the fact we had that rental car for over a year was significant. I completely forgot that vehicle existed until someone reminded me of it. Then there were memories, but if someone hadn't mentioned that rental vehicle to me, for whatever reason, I would never have remembered it. Which, for an SI type, or maybe for anyone, is unsettling. Your memory isn't permanent or super reliable, even if your ability to memorize things and remember things is one of your strengths. It's not reliable, don't feel safe. Versus NI types. One ENTJ I spoke with couldn't remember any of the inflammatory things they said to other people at any given time, things that would be dynamics changing or Jesus, keep your head down after saying something like that. But they remembered a short story I wrote many years ago that meant absolutely nothing to me, that I passed along in passing. So insignificant it meant nothing to me, but for whatever reason, this ENTJ who can't remember anything, this sticks out in their memory. I don't know how or why those discrepancies between SI and NI exist, but they seem to. NI types will forget you exist. If you're ever feeling disconnected from an SP or an NJ in your life, don't blame them. Hit them up first. They probably forgot you are part of the world we're living in. And you can use that to prompt NI types into doing things once you understand that about them. But compare that to SI types. We accidentally just stumbled into the second component of SI. Reflection and review. I sometimes joke NI types lack object permanence. I thought that was a pretty clear joke. If it wasn't, it's a joke. It's an exaggeration of a contrast between NI and SI. The contrast being the amount of reflection and review, or the events NI types reflect and review on, versus the amount of reflection and review in the events reflected and reviewed on by SI types. SI types are constantly reflecting and reviewing on past experiences. SI types, TI and FI SI types, seem always to be reviewing these coded memories in their heads. Periodically, as time goes on, your mind, an SI type's mind, will bring one of these snapshots, sensations, words, places, people, etc. to the forefront, and then the SI type will attempt to decode meaning from that snapshot using snapshots gained since that original one was stored in memory. Something will set you off, and then you'll be replaying a memory in your head. You'll pause at different moments and try to figure out, this happened at this point, why? Why did that happen? Based on what I've learned, or with knowledge I have now, compared against even older snapshots, why did things play out this way? If I could, or if I would have inserted a different strategy or something else had happened, would things have played out differently? Let's look at other snapshots similar to how things might have looked different. That's maybe if you're just trying to solve the problem for future situations. That's not at all the way SI works all the time. Sometimes it is, this was really good. Why was this really good? Or this was fucked up. Why was this fucked up? It's like every SI type is at all times reviewing the facts of the case of their own life. Again, compare that level of reflection and review against NI types. They can forget people exist if they don't see them. Or when they want to remember something, they have trouble constructing a coherent chain of events. Something I've noticed about NI I want to talk about in its own video, but I need to observe it more, is I've noticed NI types seem to mash memories together. So when they're introspecting, they are not introspecting on one event. They are introspecting on a series of similar events Frankensteined together into one without clear details connected to any one point. Examples. SI type. When I was 5, a kid pushed me in the mud. When I was 10, a kid pushed me in the mud. When I was 15, a dude pushed me in the mud. I wonder why I keep getting pushed in the mud. NI type. People treat me like shit. If you don't know the differences between SI and NI, those two recollections sound similar and can mean the same thing, but they are very different in terms of how people store and review information, particularly regarding the future. NI types seem to be able to get over stuff relatively quickly because they are better able to forget potentially crippling details, versus SI types who are going to be neuroticizing over these little things forever. NI looks out over the sea with its hand shading its eye, and SI sits back in a chair on its porch. That leads us into the third component of SI, repetition. SI tends toward repetition without realizing it likes repetition or that level of repetition is abnormal. Even though if we're going statistically, if you want to play around with definitions, it is normal, but it isn't normal. But again, it's not as simple as SI likes repetition. SI tends toward repetition. Why? Well, SI is not just data storage, or if you want to call it data storage, it isn't just information. It is sensational. When we find something material that works, we're going to tend to stick to it. One, because we already know it works, but two, because there's some urge to keep doing something that's already proven itself to work. If you open the door on the left and walk through, that's cool. You open the door on the right and get punched in the face, you're going to go back to the door on the left and keep going through the door on the left because you got punched in the face going through the door on the right. For an SI type, that's a perfectly natural train of thought. When we did X, we were rewarded. When we did Y, we were punished. Therefore, we will always do X. So you'll see SI types order the same things off the menu at the same restaurants every single time. Often on the same days of the week, at the same times of day. They'll wear the same outfits. Or they'll have particular outfits for particular occasions they always wear on those particular occasions. Some people would call it stagnation. I would call it careful, because it's not like SI never tries anything new. It is just inclined to remember bad experiences as things to be avoided and good experiences as things to be sought after in a clear-cut, repeatable way. So as an SI type ages, they will develop a stronger and stronger basis of what works and what doesn't. That becomes an urge stronger when you rope it into SI's reflection and review nature. Now contrast that against NI, or NI and SE. NI types tend to be more precocious when they're younger. But once they're older, they also tend to have less of a strong basis to fall back on, or foundation to fall back on, if things don't work. To SI types, with our repetition urges, it looks like NI SE types are playing by a different set of rules. They can zoom by things with ease. We would have to learn through trial and error, and then they will trip and fall on their faces over something by our metrics they should already know. In dealing with NI types, an SI type is likely to ask, how did you know to do that? When something pays off for them in a way that doesn't make sense. And then, how did you not know that? When something doesn't work for them, when they do something they should have known not to have done, based on their own personal experiences. Now, SI can take an uglier turn and never try anything new, dig itself into a rut of remembering the same things and doing the same things over and over and over, even after they've proven themselves not to work. But to overcome that problem, all you need is a big red button, fuck off, ejector seat. If you are in any kind of an SI rut, take a day, go somewhere you've never been, try some food you've never tried, buy a new outfit, listen to something that challenges your beliefs while you're doing it, see things you've never seen, come back. You'll feel a whole lot better, even though you're probably shaking. It might not pay off the first time, but if you can build experimentation into your SI routine, and you'll feel it. You'll feel when you know you need to engage experiment.exe. You'll keep yourself out of ruts better. Then we come to the final aspect of SI, the physical aspect. Not even the storing physical sensations as memories aspect. I mean the physical aspect. SI operates on a conscious and an unconscious level. When you experience the same sorts of events enough times, or you practice something physically enough times, you develop a sort of SI muscle memory. And SI actually starts looking a lot like intuition when this happens. If you box and you square up with someone and you've done it enough times, you can tell, not even just by looking at them necessarily, that feels more like an SE kind of thing, but there's something in the air, you can just feel what they're going to do based on everything else you've done in the past, even though you've never met this person or seen them fight in their life. You just know. You'll notice people type athletes, all athletes, as SE types, when clearly that isn't the case. You watch their interviews, maybe read some of their books, watch some of whatever it is they do, you can see they have a specific way they do everything. It's not SE, that's all SI. And they're effective at whatever sport they're doing, not in spite of SI, but because of SI. They are so perceptive or well-trained at whatever it is they're doing, they have an intuitive understanding of the way pieces on the board are going to move before they move. And it really is instincts. With SI, sometimes you'll just get a bad vibe. Something is off about this. Something is weird here. And you'll know to get out of there. And then you'll find out later something really bad happened. How did you know? No idea. You just knew. Something was not the way it was supposed to be. Something didn't line up. I think it's important Samurai Jack is an ISTJ, not an ISTP. People commonly say ISTPs are the most like samurai. Well, Patrice had a bit about presidents. We need two presidents. One who's fun, we like him, he gets his dick sucked, he's funny, and one who kills people. I think in terms of physicality, ISTPs are the sort of samurai who are the fun president. They have an aura, they have a mystique, they have a craft, they have a legend, they have a style. All important things to the idea of samurai. Then you have ISTJs. They are samurai who kill people. If an SI type does something enough times and develops a method of succeeding to the point it's instinct, they aren't flying by the seat of their pants like mavericks. They're on efficient autopilot in the material realm. And that's the final important contrast I want to put in your head to watch out for. SE types are more observant of the natural world, they're more connected with the natural world, but they seem to lack that something is off autopilot instinct. I think there's a reason SI types, or SI as a function, is overwhelmingly more common in humans, but that is a completely different conversation. It's an important thing NI types don't have. It's like a trade-off. So in summary, SI types store memories almost like brain dances from 2077 actually. They're always reviewing them. That's an instinct that keeps them safe and can hold them back. Double-edged sword. SI types seem linked up in the sense they remember the same details about the same things. SI isn't comprehensive, don't get too cocky. SI repetitiveness isn't a preference, it's an urge, and it's not always a good feeling, but it is an urge based on experience. Something to keep in mind. And finally, SI in the material realm becomes an almost instinctual sense of what is going to happen. But that about rapidly wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. What do you think about SI? Thanks again for watching, everybody. Really a lot of fun on this channel. So much fun. In fact, you can throw it as hard as you can, because it's a lot of fun to throw it. That's so much we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.